You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hello Well with Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle Washington, and I want to talk about something today that I've had an issue with. And so I was like, you know what? This is something I've had an issue with. I know so many people have an issue with it because people do it to me all the time, and I'm tired of it, and I'm tired of doing it to myself. And I want to talk about one of the most harmful words in the English language. And if you think about it, words are powerful. You know, they always say sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Nah, boo. Names and our words constantly hurt us on a regular basis. So I'm more afraid of the words than the sticks. And so I want to talk about the word should. I should do better. I should know better. I should eat healthier. You should, take better care of yourself. You should, go vegan. This word is so harmful. And even look at the definition. I'm a definition girl. I love looking at definitions of different things. So even the definition of this word is mad shady. The definition says it's used to indicate an obligation, a duty, a correctness, typically when criticizing someone's actions. And oftentimes we should all over ourselves. I really want a shirt that says, I stop shoulding all over ourselves, because we should all over ourselves all the time. And I use the word should so much, or before I started actually being conscious of the fact that I was using should so much, I was using the word should constantly, oh my God, Danielle, you should know better. You should make up your bed. You should go to your ancestor altar. You should go check on your parent. You should be this. You should do that. You shouldn't do this. And it's like, who are the should police? Seriously, who's controlling the shoulds? Is there a committee saying what is acceptable in the should land? And where does this ideal come from? I want to know. Well, actually, I do know. I do know where it comes from. And it sucks. So I want to unpack why this word sucks and what has us in a way of thinking about it. Because if you think about the word should, ain't nothing good comes after the word should. I should blank. It is a criticism. It is a self-deprecation. It is lack of self-acceptance. It is criticizing yourself. It is blaming yourself. It's not that I made a mistake or I did something wrong. When you use the word should, you are saying I am fundamentally flawed at the core. Should equals flawed. So every time we use the word should on ourselves or on other people, we're saying something's flawed. And that I don't know about you, it don't feel right to me. It don't make me feel all warm and fuzzy when someone's like, oh, you should. I'm like, oh, yes. Criticize me, girl. Yes. Bring it on. More. Nah, boo. It don't feel good. But we do it to ourselves constantly. We're always saying, I should do this. I should do that. And we are criticizing ourselves. At the core of this word, it's a judgment. We are judging ourselves or someone else every time you use the word should. So let's unpack why this word hella sucks. If you haven't figured this out already, I think this word sucks. And that's why I think perhaps you may want to consider removing it from your conversations and especially from talking to yourself, because, it doesn't feel good. And the first thing that I think of when I think of the word should, and I used to do this thing called breaking up with the norm. And it was a 5-day challenge. And the shoulds are all about societal norms. It's what society's what the things we're doing things because it's expected of us. It's these rules and regulations, whether they're unspoken or spoken. I should wait for the light to change before crossing the street. Yeah, maybe it might save my life, but it's a judgment. It's judgment nonetheless. And it's taking away my rights to be rebellious. And I'm not saying you have to be rebellious, but I'm just saying, it takes away that the autonomy of controlling your own thoughts and actions, because we always think, we're doing what's expected of us. And it feels like when you use the word should, the way I like to think about it, when you use the word should, it feels like you're falling short of this, perfection benchmark, which again, the perfection benchmark is, who is telling us that we should? And, why are we someone telling us that we should? And it comes from the societal norms that we feel like we should be following because that's what is expected of us. And let's begin with the first thought process of this is no one's perfect. So why are you shitting on me when you ain't perfect and this perfect benchmark of what is expected of me is BS? It also stops you from speaking your truth. And that's one thing that kind of gets to me. As this is, today is the summer solstice. It's the day after Juneteenth. And if you are in America, you know that, Congress, good old people, the good old boys, passed, some kind of laws, whatever, making Juneteenth a holiday. And I don't know how you feel about this, but this is me not shoulding. Oh, I should keep my mouth shut because I'm Black and I should be pro Juneteenth. I am pro Juneteenth, but I'm also pro Juneteenth as a national holiday. And why is that? Because I feel, and this is my opinion, and this is me going against the shoulds of society saying what's expected of me. You need to stay in your corner and be good. And that goes back to that whole Naomi Osaka. If you listened to the podcast the other day, a couple weeks ago about Naomi Osaka, you should, shut up and play, when she was talking about her feeling the needing time for self-care. But it goes back to Juneteenth and me feeling like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say what I'm feeling. No, I feel like Juneteenth being a national holiday, it feels like it's going to turn into the Cinco de Mayo for Black people. And I'm like, it ain't Cinco de Mayo. It is not, and like I almost wish others didn't know about it so we continue celebrating. And they would think June 19th is just another day while we're over there celebrating our liberation, or in theory, our liberation. But going back to the conversation, I got off topic, but the shoulds stop us from speaking our truth. They stop us from, our controlling our actions and our thoughts because we feel like we have to do a certain way, and it totally ignores the importance of like what you feel and what you think. And it oftentimes is not even in alignment with what you want for your own life. Like, oh, I should go to college. If that's not in alignment with what you're feeling, or I should be this entrepreneur who hustles hard, doesn't sleep, I don't eat well, I should go fully vegan and, cut off my hair and go into moments of silence. None of those things are in alignment with what I want and what I need in my life to make me feel happy. But when you should all over yourself, that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying, nope, you're lacking something. You are, you, bad you, bad you, bad you. You're not doing something right. You're not making that perfect benchmark. You're falling short. Judgment, judgment, judgment. And it don't feel right. But people use it oftentimes should as, a way to motivate themselves. And let me be clear, another reason why it sucks is because it's not a great motivator. Think about it. Using negative emotions to make changes is not a great motivator. Think about the prison system. We have death row in many different states. And does it stop people from killing other people? Does it stop people from shooting other people? No, it doesn't. None of this stops people. So it's like this negative, like, oh, you're going to go to jail if you do these things. It doesn't stop many people from committing crimes. So again, this negative, emotion or negative thing is that we're hoping that it will motivate us. And I won't, don't get me wrong. There are some people where using negative emotions does motivate them, but in the reality of it all, yeah, it might motivate them for a second, but it's not a long-term shift in your behaviors, and you'll most likely burn out real quick from that. And instead, it, motivates people from this, feeling of lack of acceptance rather than encouragement. And that, again, I say it over and over, it doesn't feel well, which is another reason why this word sucks. It sparks so many negative emotions, and it leads to regret. When you're saying I should, it's like, oh, dang, I wish I did better. I should have gone on that trip, in early 2020 because who knew COVID was going to take over my life. It's this wishing, it's this feeling of regret. And it's not, it doesn't feel, I kind of continuously say this over and over. It don't feel good. It don't feel right. But yet we should all of ourselves all the time. And if you think of the word shoulding all of yourselves all the time, it sounds like another word that we use. And that doesn't feel good either. So why would you should all over yourself constantly over and over and over again? And the reason why is because we have the societal norm that, oh, well, this is what is expected. This is like, if I'm going to fit into this bubble, if I'm going to fit into the norm, I need to should on myself because it puts me in the box and I need to live in the box. In reality, no, you don't need to live in the box. The box sucks. The box will hold you back. The box is not your friend, nor is the word should. But again, we should all over ourselves constantly. And it also stops you from taking risk and having fun. Remember, like when you were a kid, think about it when you were a kid. You were fearless. You were a fearless badass. Like, oh, I'm not afraid of climbing the tree. When someone's like, oh, you shouldn't climb the tree, you can get hurt. No, you climbed the tree. As a kid, we did so much. We took the risk and we had fun. And as adults, we, bring in these feelings of roles and responsibilities. I'm a mother, I'm, a caregiver, I'm, a pet owner, I'm this, I'm that, and that, and that, and other responsibilities. I'm at a certain age, I'm over 30, I'm over 21, I should act a certain way, oh, I should dress a certain way, I should eat a certain way, I should know better, I should do better. And it takes out, it like literally sucks out the ever living life out of fun, out of taking risk, out of adventure. When you are so stuck in the shoulds, you're not living in the present moment. You're so in the, oh, this is the way I want to be in the future, so I should be this way, or this is the way, that this has kept me safe, so in the past, so I should be this way. You're not here. You're not in the present. You're not living. And it sucks. It just sucks. And it takes you away from living life in the moment. It takes you away from having fun. I'm not saying we should negate our responsibilities or our roles, but what I am saying is when we should all over ourselves, we're stepping further away from living life fully in a way that is in alignment with us and taking risks, which gets us out of our comfort zone. There's nothing, when you think of your comfort zone, it's meant in your ego, it's meant to keep you safe. It's all about keeping you safe. I should, That's the ego. That's the ego telling you, danger, danger, danger. You're getting out of the comfort zone. You're going out, you're stepping outside the box. And I'm going to need you to get back in that box. And what it's saying is that box is your safety. The box and your comfort zone is what is your past, meaning it's what you know. And when you're not living towards the uncertainty, the unknown, the present moment, or the future, you're living in the box and you're not allowing yourself to grow. There is no growth in the comfort zone. There's safety to some degree. And it's not even safety that you may want. Being in your comfort zone doesn't mean that you're safe and you're fun and having a good time. Oftentimes being in your comfort zone, it may be the life that you don't really desire to have, but it's the one you're like, well, I've always been on food stamps. Like, it is what it is. This is my comfort zone. Me jumping out and starting something new and innovating and whatever may be good and may lift me out of this comfort zone, but it doesn't feel safe. The ego's like, nope, you should stay here. You should not try to, get outside of your lane. I hate that when people tell you stay in your lane. You should stay in your lane. F the lane. The lane ain't done nothing for you. Again, who are the should please? If you know who the should please are, let a sister know, because I really want them to all go to jail, because they should go to jail. I use that word on purpose. But oftentimes we use should, and I will say this, and I want to clarify this as well. There are people who use the word should in in a good way, not in a good way, and their heart is in the right spot. And I want to say that, like we say, I would tell my nephew, like, you should consider, finding things that make you happy. And it's not that I'm saying it in a way that I want him to do harm towards himself. I'm saying it in a way that I want him to do better. But at the same time, it still goes back to, it's a criticism. It's a judgment. It's to me saying, hey, I love you, but I don't feel like you are doing things the way you quote unquote should do. I'm saying it's not the way. I love you, but you're not doing something right. I love you, but you're lacking something. Every time you tell someone you should blank, you're saying to them, I don't feel you're doing the right thing. I am judging you. I feel that you are flawed. So every time you say the word you should is saying you're flawed. And think about that. Do you really want to tell your loved ones, hey, I love you. Hey, Oprah, you're flawed. You should, da da da. You're flawed. You're flawed. What we're saying is you're flawed. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to tell people I love you're flawed. And when I was able to come to the realization that every time I said you should is me saying you're flawed, it made me shift how I thought about my words and made me realize that I don't like when people shit on me. So why am I over here shitting on other people? But again, it's one of those things where we oftentimes don't even realize that we're shitting on others or shitting on ourselves. I say shit all the time, even when I know better. So I want us to remember that, it doesn't feel good. It takes us away from, being our authentic selves, taking risks, growing and having fun, but also it denies us our intuitive gifts. We all are intuitive in some way or another. There's these things called the clairs. If you listen to the podcast I did with Danny Faust about manifestation, we talked about the clairs. I always get them wrong. Like, what are they? They're clairvoyant, clairsentient, clair something. There's a bunch of clairs. But we all have an intuitive gift. We have that gut feeling. Think about it when you're watching a movie and you that gut feeling, you're like, girl, you shouldn't go in that room. That's that gut intuitive feeling like something is going to go wrong. Something is dangerous. And so when we should all over ourselves, what we're doing is we're denying ourselves of this intuitive gift. We're saying our intuition is wrong. It's not reliable. So we're not allowing ourselves to rely on our gifts that, universe, God, whoever you want to call, has given us. And we're denying ourselves this beauty because we're like, oh, it's because I should think this way. I am wrong because I'm lacking, I'm flawed, I'm fundamentally flawed. And that sucks. That totally sucks. The other part of this I want to talk about why we should, did you just hear that? Why we should, and again, even in a podcast talking about stopping using the word should, not thinking and not being methodical about my words, I use the word should. So let's backtrack that situation. Another reason why perhaps you may want to consider removing the word should from your vocabulary is, think about it in the sense that I feel like it takes us away from loving ourselves. When you are sitting up here and saying, I'm flawed, I'm falling short of this, perfect benchmark, even though perfection doesn't exist. I'm self-deprecating. I'm like, you're not accepting who you are. When you use the word should, you are saying that something about me is not right. Where I am is not right. Who I am is not right. I am flawed. I'm judging myself. And that's not love. That's the opposite of love. And like we try to live up to these like stereotypical standards, like, oh, I'm just a strong Black woman and I have to act a certain way to be that strong Black woman, or I have to be a certain way to be a good mom, or to be a good daughter, or to be a good wife, a good partner. It's taking us away from authentically being who we were meant to be, being in alignment. It just, it just sucks. It's one of the many reasons why I just think we shouldn't be using this word. I shouldn't be using. I'm literally catching myself every time I'm saying this as I'm doing this. So, okay, if I am saying that perhaps you should, perhaps you should, okay, if I'm saying perhaps you may want to consider not using the word should, what can you use instead? What can you do? So, what can you do instead of using the word should and stop shoulding all over yourself? Because if that's something that you want to do, I'm hoping you want to. I'm hoping after listening to this podcast, you're like, I'm going to stop shoulding all over myself, and I'm going to more importantly stop shoulding all over other people. So, I want to say that there's nothing wrong with setting goals and measurements and measuring them, but you need to do it with grace. And when you use the word should, you're not giving yourself grace. You're giving yourself judgment. So that's the first thing. I want you to find a way to observe your words and shift when needed. What can you say instead of the word should? Can, I could, I would, perhaps, I want. I don't know why I felt like I needed to sing these words. Like it was an after school special. It's like, I can, I could, I would, I should. And I could try to continue singing, but I know that I cannot sing, and I'm okay with that. That's how I didn't say I should sing, should stop singing. But in using those words, can, would, perhaps, could, you're giving yourself choice. And by giving yourself choice, you're already saying, I haven't failed already. What you're saying is by giving yourself options and choices, is you're saying that you're not allowing yourself to say it that I'm fundamentally flawed. And so that's one reason why I like using those words instead of the word should. Also, when you start finding that you're using the word should, start to question yourself or someone else. Why am I using the word should? Why should I do or think a certain way? And does that make me feel good? Is that in alignment with how I want to be and how I want to be perceived and how I want to show up in other people's lives? So question when you use the word should, well, why? Why should I? Why should I think this way? Why should I do things a certain way? Also learn how to validate yourself in a form that's positive and supportive. Using the word should is not valid. It's using this self-deprecation to validate what you're doing wrong. And it's validating that you're flawed. And do you really want to validate that you're flawed? I don't think you're flawed. I think you're an amazing, you're perfectly imperfect human, because there's no human that's perfect. And when we realize that we're not perfect, the shoulds kind of should be going out the window. Should. Use it again. Third time in this. And I'm like literally counting. It's like there's a counter. Third time I've used it. But also stay away from this all or nothing mentality. When we think things have to be black or white, it has to be all or nothing, that's when we should on ourselves, because it's like there's no choices. And it goes back to when you allow yourself to have choices, you're not already failing because you have options. But when you have this all or nothing, it's like either I win or I lose, and there's no gray line in between. Yeah, you shouldn't will make it so, you can easily consider yourself a failure, consider yourself flawed, and criticizing yourself. And that doesn't feel good. Again, when living hell and well, in my mind, it's about being in alignment with who you are meant to be and who you're growing to be. But it's also about giving yourself grace. And it's about, feeling good about yourself. And that's why I always say we should break up with the norm, because the norm is these shoulds, because we should all over ourselves. And the shoulds are us feeling like we have to live up to this expectation to be successful, to be beautiful. Oh, I should straighten my hair because that's what, American Beauty is. I should, go find, I don't know. I'm just thinking I should, do all these things to become successful because that's what I should be aiming for. That's the American dream. Nah, break up with the norm. Break up with the norm. Give yourself grace. Observe your words. Question why you should do a certain thing or feel a certain way. And on top of that, I want you to think about these 3 different things. So instead of using the word shoulding and shoulding all over ourselves, I want you, when you're talking to yourself or to other people, focus on the benefits. So instead of saying, I should meditate more, which I do probably say often to myself, I like to start thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what's the benefit behind meditating? Okay, when I meditate, I feel better. I feel grounded. I feel centered. And I feel ready for my day when I meditate. So again, instead of saying I should meditate, what instead I'm saying is I'm going to focus on the benefits, and I'll say, if and when I meditate, I feel centered and I feel more prepared for having an amazing day. And that helps you come from a place of love and a place of positivity versus negative emotion, trying to use a negative emotion to change a behavior. The other thing I want you to think about is focusing on the activity. And does it even like fit your values? Like, oh, I should stop smoking or I shouldn't smoke, which is really interesting because like I used to be a European and Vegas smoker, which it didn't make any sense. So every time I was in Europe or in Vegas, like in Europe, my friend Kato and I love one of my favorite travel partners of all time. Somehow or another, we first thing we do, we get together, we'd hug, and then we buy a pack of cigarettes. Neither one of us smokes. He's from the UK, but if we hit Italy, we hit Portugal or some other country, we're like Spain, we're like, and let the smoking begin. But what I would tell myself, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't smoke because it doesn't fit in line with, my values. But instead of saying I shouldn't smoke because it doesn't fit my values, I should remember, or you should remember, if this is something that is something for you, that it's important for me to take care of my body. And that's tapping into your values instead of, oh, I shouldn't smoke. It's like, oh, it's important to take care of my body. So if it's important for me to take care of my body, I don't think I'm going to smoke. Versus, oh, you shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't smoke. The third thing I wanted to bring up, and kind of the last point, is focusing on accepting and exploring your reality. Your reality. So stop avoiding like unhealthy feelings and feel that you feelings that you like you should, I should feel this way, I should this way. Instead, say I'm okay with feeling and thinking this way and explore how that feels. I shouldn't be angry. Instead of, oh, I shouldn't be angry. I should be able to cope better with grief. And like, I was one of those people who, when I was grieving, I had 6 people die in 2018 on me. And in my mind, I was shoulding. And that's when I was really shoulding. I was like, oh, you should do better. You should be able to buck up. Why are you like sad? You should, be able to cope better. Like after the first 2 or 3 of that year, you should be able to bounce back like that. And instead of allowing myself to feel what I was feeling or thinking, I should it all over myself. And so what I'm saying in this situation is focus on accepting and exploring what is your current reality in that moment. And say like, okay, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this. And instead of feeling and thinking a certain way and shaming yourself for it, allow yourself grace. Allow yourself grace to be you, to live the way you are feeling, and to acknowledge that, some days I might be angry. Okay, why am I feeling this way? It's okay to feel angry. I shouldn't have to. I could consider the ideal of allowing myself to be okay with this moment and this feeling, exploring why I feel this way versus shaming myself. I don't know. All I know is if this world could stop using the word should in every language possible, I think we'll be a better place. I think should consistently equates the word flawed, and we're not flawed. We are perfectly imperfect humans. That is the way we were built. That's the way we will always be. There is no perfection. So why is this perfection benchmark up in our face and we're shitting all over ourselves and shitting over our loved ones all the time? It all makes sense. It's time to let go the word should. It's time to start loving on you. It's time to give yourself grace. It's time to remember and focus on the benefits versus saying, I'm criticizing myself. I'm lacking. I'm flawed. You're not flawed, sis. You are beautifully, amazingly, unapologetically, perfectly imperfect. I love y'all, and I will see you guys next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.